On today's episode of Let's Grow Together, I talk with serial entrepreneur Ben Herman. And man, he brings so many amazing lessons that he's learned through creating his own business, his own DJ business at a super young age. And now he's on to his second business, working on a third business. Just so much value into how to achieve success through continuous effort and what it really takes and what steps are necessary. And he goes through all this, and I don't, I'll let the episode do its thing, but just so much value, jam packed with lessons from his experience and how he was able to build a successful business and now is already working on multiple other businesses. So let's dive in. But first, the intro. Welcome to Let's Grow Together. My name is Nick Monotadibus, motivational speaker and digital marketing strategist. And this podcast is all about helping you grow both in life and business. Let's dive in. We are back and I'm fired up. I am so excited to dive in and talk with this individual. We connected through a mutual friend. It's like one of those things you jump on a Zoom call to meet, and it's like, hey, did we just become best friends? And we've just like continued to talk, and we're talking about getting a group together, and it just goes to show you like how quickly you can connect with somebody else. And so I'm just so excited to dive in and kind of even get to know you even more than we've already connected, but also to get the listeners to really get to know you. So, Ben, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's up, Nick? It's a pleasure to get to know you. I mean, one thing is your listeners probably understand this. You're a charismatic guy, so you're an easy guy to get along with anyways, and then we also have a lot in common as well. So it makes it easy.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, this is gonna be a really fun conversation as we dive in. I'm curious to kind of hear your story a little bit more. But real quick, just tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and who you serve.
Absolutely. So, Nick, like you mentioned, my name is Ben Herman. I am actually a serial entrepreneur. That's probably the best way to put it. I never used to call myself that, but I started realizing, man, I am picking up businesses left and right, and it's starting to become that way. So, originally, my I guess my origin story is that I started a DJ entertainment company that then really grew into more of a full entertainment service provider. Then I started actually a online DJ school. And then in addition to that, I also do some business coaching on the side. And there may actually be kind of a deal in the works as of now that I can't really talk about at the moment, but there may be another business that's added on. And then lastly, I'm also helping my wife with her online business as well. So
Amazing. Yes, and I'm curious to learn more from, and we'll dive into more at least in the stuff that you can share. But yeah, let's start in the beginning. Starting your DJ company. Do you like? What was that experience like? Like, how young were you? Because you've been in business a while, right? And you're a young guy. Like, when did this start?
yeah, so officially, we've been in business now for 15 years.
Wow.
But really, us entrepreneurs, we start as sole proprietors without an official business. It's more under the table stuff, right? So I would say probably started a year or two prior to that, but I officially like count when I incorporated the business as the official start date. Uh, so I actually, believe it or not, started my business back in high school. So I was a junior in high school. I've been a DJ actually since middle school. So got into it around seventh grade. And as I was again kind of learning the business and also the skill of DJing, I started getting gigs left and right and realized, man, this is really fun. But at first it was more for the love of music, and then it quickly became the passion for business as well, because I really love playing the game of business, building something that's larger than myself. And so really, it was my sophomore year of high school. I was handed a book, Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And up until that point, I hadn't finished a book from cover to cover. I was always the person that kind of pretended to read in class. I wasn't actually reading the words. So I just had to time myself like every few minutes to, shift the pages around, right?
I
I
did
also,
the same thing. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
I also
Great.
use Cliff Notes online for book reports. So
I used to
legitimately,
watch the movies. That was my I tried
oh,
to
that was
find a
your way,
book.
huh?
Yeah.
Nice. That's great. Yeah, so really, it was at 16 years of age that was the first time I actually finished a book from cover to cover, and it was because I was truly interested in the content that was inside. And that book was life changing, not just to myself, but as I've gone, learned, kind of met other entrepreneurs. It's been a common thing that like this book has really sparked the entrepreneurial spirit in someone, right? And really, what it gave me is it gave me hope, and it also gave me the confidence to understand. Because really, if you had a chance to read the book, really what it talks about is like how the school system, the public school system, is structured, and that's not empowering to everyone. Now, if you want to become like an attorney or a doctor where you need schooling, then that's absolutely important and pertinent. But if you want to become an entrepreneur, it's less important actually to have a diploma, because ultimately you're going to hire the people that have diplomas, right?
Yeah,
And-
it's such a good book. Like he explains his two different dads, his biological dad and his stepdad, and how they're two totally different people and how they see different things. That's what's so fascinating. It's such a mindset book. Like I just remember when I was reading it, it was just like the constant like you know the emoji. You can imagine the emoji of just like the exploding head, and that's what I remember from it. Just so many nuggets that just like totally blow your mind and make you think about things differently.
Absolutely. And the one thing that really did for me also was I thought I was this weird kid because I struggled in school, and the people around me seemed to be really into school. It seemed to come easy to them, where I was the person that literally stayed after school getting tutored by either classmates or teachers and still got below average grades. Right. So I really tried hard, but I just struggled at it academically. And this book talked about that, right? And it talked about how that a lot of entrepreneurs, as a matter of fact, struggle academically, and that it's totally normal, right? And so for the first time, I felt like I was seen and I was recognized for being okay being myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. And yeah, I didn't realize that it was that common because I share that same origin story. And like I struggled with academics and test taking and reading, and we were just talking about that. Like like
Yeah, yeah.
I've talked about on the show like my stories with reading, but yeah, it's a wild thing of entrepreneurship that opens up so many doors. I mean, there's entrepreneurs that didn't graduate high school and things of that sort. That went on to do like incredible, amazing things.
You know what's so interesting about that is some of the biggest names that we all recognize went through that, right? So Richard Branson didn't even finish middle school, right? Bill Gates dropped out of college. Steve Jobs dropped out of college. Michael Dell dropped out of college.
Zuckerberg,
Henry
yep.
Ford, right? Zuckerberg. Yeah. Henry Ford didn't graduate middle school either, right? So
Oh
there's
man, yeah.
there's a lot of
Henry Ford is super interesting. If you read Think and Grow Rich, so I happen to be reading right now, so it's pretty top of mind.
Mhm.
I'm rereading it, and yeah, like he had people question him about like the history of things, and he's like, I don't need to know the history of things because I hire people that know these things. Like
Yeah.
people didn't believe he was educated because he didn't know these things, but then they heard him speak about uh like the car industry and different pieces, and he talked about how I don't need to know this because I have this person that knows all of this, and people were like kind of blown away. And there was a common perception of somebody who didn't again didn't go through the school, but here he was a revolutionary, like with what he did in the industry.
Yeah. And if I understand we're supposed to talk about my origin story, but let's stay on this topic because it's super interesting. So another thing that this book unveils, Rich Dad Poor Dad, is how the modern day school system was founded, right? So of course, schooling has always been around, but really like the 19th and the 20th century school system, how it was founded and kind of the purpose of it, right? So here's the interesting part: is like people like Rockefeller, for instance, right? Um, Back in the day, we were in the industrial age, the early 1900s, right? And so there's a lot of adults that were working at the factories because it was a well-paid job, with pensions and benefits and all, it was an ideal job to have back then, right? And of course, these adults had children, right? So the challenge was how were the children going to be taken care of while mom and dad were working at the factory? So, as an added benefit, these founders and CEOs or companies, right? decided to build a facility right beside the factory, which is now considered our school system, right? It was classroom style. It was actually supposed to start off as just daycare for the children of the employees, right? But then like, hey, while they're here, might as well actually foster and grow them into becoming awesome factory workers. So let's teach them the things that they need to know to become awesome employees, right? In
Wow.
addition to that, if you think about our federal government backs our public school system, right, financially. So what is our federal government interested in, right? How do they stay in business? Taxes. So who pays the highest amount of taxes? Employees, W-2s, right? So our school system is created to empower people to become really successful employees versus entrepreneurs, because they're ultimately going to be the people that keep the government alive as well,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
If you do more research on it, you'll see like all of the big time schools are named after these factory owners, these entrepreneurs.
That's amazing. I never even is that in Rich Dad Poor Dad? I don't remember that part. It's probably I'm probably due for, a re-listen. But yeah, wow, that's so fascinating. And it goes to show too. I mean, I've definitely heard that talk a lot about in general, like a lot of higher influencers talk about how just in general, the educational school systems are designed for, employees, for creating employees. But I never heard it from the past, even further back from like the origin. I thought it was just like, oh, that's how it was. Um, which is, yeah, it's super fascinating from like this entrepreneurial world of how you're not bred, like they don't have business classes younger growing up, they're just, it's all this aptitude tests and all of these things that aren't even helpful for you at all. It's just not designed for, school is not designed for entrepreneurship.
Not necessarily. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. But, hopefully things will start to change, like get against the grain, the cog or like
Yeah, yeah.
how can we as entrepreneurs empower more people, more younger kids into that generation? And you see a lot of parents that are entrepreneurs are, embodying their kids to be entrepreneurs, and you're starting to see that, at least that I've seen, like people that I know specifically that are entrepreneurs have kids that are wanting to do things in the entrepreneur world. And again, that kind of comes from, you are your environment of like what you're surrounded with.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is that we need both, right? So employees aren't bad. They're absolutely necessary. And so are entrepreneurs, right? Entrepreneurs are the job creators and employees need to fill those jobs, right? So it's actually, they both rely on one another, right? Which is interesting. But it is also interesting that, yeah, growing up in high school, parents left and right, my own parents, but also, my friends' parents were always complaining, why doesn't our school system teach us about how to budget, or how, just financial education as well? And then here's what's even more interesting is even like MBAs, right? So masters in business, right? It's more about teaching you how to become a CEO or a C-level exec, which in the end is still an employee, by the way, right? It's not the shareholder, if you really think about it.
Right.
So business management is really still working inside the business. It's not actually exterior, right? Of being a true entrepreneur, which ultimately entrepreneurs want to fire themselves from positions. They want to get someone in there. They want to build up the business enough where they can afford to hire that person and build out the systems that they can train someone to replace themselves from that position. So that way, ultimately, in the end, they can create time and financial freedom to then work on the next project.
Right. It's
Right.
exactly it, because true entrepreneurs don't actually work at all if they're doing it
Yeah.
right. They're building a machine that runs itself. They have employees that take care of everything, and carry it out, and you just sit back and you do the grunt work in the beginning, and then you get to reap the rewards if you're able to create and build a team of people around you. And like you said, get the freedom to do other things, like one of my favorite, one of my mentors and coaches, he just recently started buying all these properties to do like Airbnbs, and so he's been able to take real estate classes and do that and educate himself further and get involved in that. And so then he can make money in a different way. And like that's the beautiful thing. Like there's definitely a difference between business owners and entrepreneurs,
Mm.
and I think if you're listening, like, which one are you? And like, which one do you want to be? Because to me, it's like super obvious, and understanding like multiple streams of income, and Rich Dad, Poor Dad, kind of like circling back, is like, I love when he talks about the book is like, you don't even need to have money to be able to create the income. Like,
Mhm.
he was able to grow and create his whole empire that he has today through other people's money.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm going through that right now. Like that's the one thing I can't talk about at the moment is there's a deal that's about to happen that's where none of my money is involved actually. Yeah.
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 Yeah, it's an amazing thing. You're just like, hey, there's tons of people out there too that are willing to be that. They're like, hey, yeah, I'll give you the money, you do the work kind of thing, and that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But I'm sure we could go off. I want to circle back here to your entrepreneur journey. I love that you started talking about how through DJing you started to fall in love with just the business aspect, and how, because I think that's so cool, because as a DJ, like if you just wanted to be a DJ your whole life, like, okay, I mean, it may be difficult. Music changes so much.
Oh yeah.
But how did, like, when did that kind of start to take off? Like, when did it become like, oh, this is just something that I'm doing on the side, to being like, wow, this is like my life. Like, this is what I want to build my life around.
Yeah, it happened very young. So I understand my origin story started a lot younger than most. So again, I was in high school where I was already starting to perform. So really, I was going to high school full time, technically, right, based off a high schooler, and then DJing on the weekend. So that was considered part time. But then at 16 years of age, I was able to work at a job. So I ended up working at a grocery store as well. So really, it was part time. But at the age of 18, I decided to actually quit my grocery job and take the full leap and going full time with my business. And the reason why was that the business wasn't even ready to financially support me full time yet. But I knew that the safety net of having that safe paycheck was holding me back and demotivating me to get a job done a lot faster, right? And so, in addition to that, I think it was less risky because I was just 18 years of age. I didn't have a family, right? My lifestyle was definitely way less established, right? We're talking about just I mean late teens, so my rent was very cheap, but still, when I made that leap, I learned very quickly that, oh, yeah, this was a very challenging decision because I literally lived on bologna sandwiches for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, not because I wanted to, not because I liked those. It's because I financially couldn't buy anything else. Right. And that is what really motivated me to turn it from not being able to fully support myself to fully supporting myself within 6 months.
That's amazing. For you to be able to have that emotional intelligence to realize that, and take that leap, get rid of the safety net, burn the ships, as they say.
Right. Yeah.
Which is that's so amazing for you to do that, especially at a young age like that. Being 18 years old and having the courage, really. I mean, because that's what it is, but it's also the confidence, like, hey, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna make it work,
Mhm.
just gonna to figure it out. And so here you are, 18, you're all in on your business, eating bologna sandwiches to make sure that you can get by. So how did it take you? Like, were you able, once you burned the ships, did things start to take off right away? Did it take some time? Like, did you have a big bump, or was it just like a slow gradual build? Like, what was that process like for you?
Yeah, great question. So it was actually a really big bump, right? Because I got really motivated and I figured out how to not only create income for myself that I had full control over versus, knocking on doors trying to beg for gigs, right? In addition to that, by doing that, I also attracted more paid clients as well. So it was kind of a twofold in a sense that I was able to generate income in two different ways at the same time within 6 months. And so that was a really beautiful thing.
Wait, what do you mean in two different ways?
So one was, if you think about it, when you first start out, you have no reputation. You have
Right.
no proof, no social proof, right? Because again, you lack the reputation. And so could you imagine, as a DJ, you're knocking on doors, you're asking bars, nightclubs, and anybody who's starting an event, hey, hire me, please hire me, please hire me, right? And people are like, never heard of you, don't know how good you are. You can DJ for free, pro bono, because you got to put your dues in, right? You got to pay your dues, right? And I was like, no, I can't, because I gotta get off these bologna sandwiches. So I ended up saying, you know what? Instead of waiting on someone else to give me the opportunity, why don't I create the opportunity myself? So what I did is I went out and I booked a local event venue, right? Just a banquet room, a banquet hall. Then put a marketing campaign together to then promote my own event. I charged a cover charge, and then I was able to generate income. But by doing this, I was also promoting my services out in the community by flyering and postering. Back then it was MySpace, so soliciting on MySpace as
Thanks,
well.
Tom.
Right, thanks, Tom. And then in addition to that, the people that did show up, right? Not only were they paying customers, but they actually got to witness me now. And so that's what created the social proof as well.
Wow, look at you thinking outside the box. I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm curious, how much were you charging for that event for people to get in?
So I looked at, again, even back then, I was trying to figure out, well, there's already kind of a lot of DJs out there performing for 21 and over events for bars and nightclubs. In addition to that, I was under 21, so it's very challenging for me to get in there because there's a legal standpoint on that. But me actually just freshly going out of high school, I saw a huge demand that, hey, there's a lot of high schoolers throwing illegal parties where cops are called and broken up by the cops. Why don't I create a safer alternative that's going to be appealing to the parents? It's going to be just as fun for the students as well. And because there's a lack of demand, I can actually charge a premium. So I knew, like, my school was charging about $10 per person to attend, a school dance or a prom or whatever else. Actually, proms were even more expensive, right? So I started off at just $10 a person. Well, guess what? 100 people is 1,000, but we actually sold out our second event. So the first one was a flop, by the way. So I gave it another try. So like, I think the first one that I threw had maybe like 7 people that showed up.
Hold on, this is great. Okay, so you got the flop. Okay, what was the reason for the flop? Like, what did you learn from the flop?
Multiple things. One is that lack of promotion time, right?
Mm.
So I thought, okay, I only needed to give myself a week to promote. And so I was like, no, I need to give myself like a month to promote to really get the word out, right? And I looked my wounds, and I did like sulk a little bit, maybe for like a week. And I was like, you know what? I got to go at it again, right? And so I was so thankful that I did, because the second time around, I sold out a venue that had a 300 person capacity, so 300 people, in less than an hour.
Wow.
Right.
How?
And mind you, at 18 years old, $3,000 is actually a lot of money.
Yeah, lots of
Right?
bologna sandwiches.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. Like, I mean, even a person now making $3,000 a month, right, is considered a decent salary, a decent starting salary, especially as a 18-year-old, right?
Yeah.
And so to be able to do that multiple times a month, as you can imagine, could generate a lot more money per month as well. So mind you, it's not pure net profit. Of course, there's like, material costs for the flyers and that kind of stuff.
Renting out the event space. Yeah.
It was way more than I was used to as a
Right.
18-year-old. So it was definitely worth it still.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. And I have to say, huge props to having the willingness to get up, again and do it. Because again, you got to imagine there's so many people out there that they try it and they fail and they're like, nah, I guess it's not meant for me. But you were like, no, I'm gonna do it again. And then you sell it out in an hour. So how did you sell it out in an hour? Like, cause I guess at this time too, I can't imagine you had online sales, or did you?
It wasn't online sales. No, it was all at the door. So, we just like poster and flyered, and then just MySpace all over the place, right? Back then. So social media, right? So that was the only digital version of ads. And by the way, I didn't pay, right? It was just me personally posting on people's comments and that kind of stuff. And then people would show up with cash in hand and they would just pay at the door, right? So I just like take one of my buddies and say, hey, I'm going to pay you X amount to sit at the door for the event, and you're just going to collect while I DJ inside, right? And so, mind you, what happened is multiple things. Okay. One is that was the first event, right? I did it a second time, sold out again within the first hour. So I was like, okay, I got to find a bigger venue. So we made a huge leap to one of the bigger venues here in our community, which had 1,000-person capacity. And we sold that one out as well.
No way. Oh my gosh, you're a superstar. That is awesome.
And then what that did is it attracted all of the high schools from our area. And these students went back to their schools and said, hey, we need this DJ at our dance, our prom, and blah, blah, blah. So it became a promotion device where now I was starting to get booked at these high schools and also had them coming to our event. And then there was a daughter who, she was a girl who was the daughter of the owner of the radio station, and said, Dad, you need to hire this guy for our radio station, which was the most popular radio station in our area. And so I was able to pick up a weekly residency on the radio as well, just from these events.
Wow. Oh my gosh. This
Isn't that
is
incredible?
so cool. Yeah, this is amazing, especially to do it as quickly as you did, again, like what was the distance between the second event and the third event? How much time?
A month
Wow.
time.
So
So
yeah,
I started figuring out, okay, I
1
need
month,
at
1
least a
month, 1
to
month.
plan to then promote. So the perfect time frame for promotion was 3 weeks. So plan for a week, promote for 3 weeks, and then have the event and turn around and do it right over again, right? Take the capital, reinvest, and do it over again, right? And then I started scoping out to like, okay, well, let's start with high schools and fill that demands. Okay, now I realized, well, there's a college, like it's a college town here too. So we had multiple colleges here, and these people also can't attend the bars or nightclubs. So let's throw them events as well, which also did the same, had the same effect, right? And here's the funny part is for the high school events, we had college students trying to sneak into a high school event because it was that awesome, right? Which you'd never hear. Usually the older kids don't want to play with the younger kids, right? So to see that happening was just like, we were on to something good, which is amazing.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, it just goes to show you that not only your business sense, but clearly a talent for entertaining.
Yeah.
Naturally, you were gifted to be able to have a successful event, have it sell out, have more people come back. Because like you could have sold out the first one, do another one, and it flops. You know, but it's like no, like people saw you because you were willing to take another chance because you were confident that if you get enough people to see you performing, doing your thing, showing off your talent, that it was going to work. And then it paid off again and again and again, and it just built and built from there. That's oh my gosh, so awesome.
For those listeners out there that are into self-development, and if you're not, I highly suggest you start doing so. I'm assuming that, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably into self-development, right? But the one thing that is a cliche saying that you hear over and over and over again is trust the process, right? But there's so much truth to that, right? Because I had to first like hone the skill of DJing, which took hours in my bedroom to actually learn the skills to figure out the music and figure out how to play it in the right way. Then I needed to figure out, okay, how do I market myself? How do I put together an event and promote it, right? But then I actually ran into another stumbling block of, man, I'm starting to work myself to exhaustion, right? Burnout. And I recognized at that point, because I was studying business, that, oh, I'm just owning a job. Because I was the owner operator. I was the DJ, the promoter, the person that like counted the money. So I guess the the accountant or the bookkeeper as well, right? And I just owned a job, a glorified job. That's it. And so I had to figure out, how can I now scale this beyond myself, right? And especially when you hear about the bus factor, which is how many people need to get hit by a bus before your business goes out of business. Most business owners, especially in the United States, have a bus factor of 1. The owner
Right.
gets taken out by a bus, the business dies with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then I had to learn how to become a leader. And that was a whole different set of skills. So every time that you graduate from one level and go into the next, it's really uncomfortable. You suck at it. So it's embarrassing sometimes, right? And that's where the imposter syndrome comes from as well, right? Because you're stepping outside, you're being stretched outside of your comfort zone.
New
But
level,
what's the
new
opposite
devil.
side? What's the opposite side? Staying in your comfort zone. What does that mean? You're staying stagnant. You're staying the same person that you are 10 years ago, right? My biggest fear is staying in the same place the following year. Like, I cannot stay like the person I was in 2020 better not be the person I am in 2021, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why you're here. Hey, let's grow together. That's what this is all about. It's this mindset of always working to be better and to grow. And like you said, every time you get to a new opportunity and you expand yourself, you're gonna have new problems, like new things are gonna arise or new things to learn. Like you said, becoming a leader, which is so cool. So like I'm curious to learn more about like I honestly kind of want to know, you mentioned that you kind of like had some embarrassing things. I'm wondering if there was something specific that you were thinking about through that journey to becoming a leader, or just kind of some positive advice or things that you went through that would be helpful for somebody stepping into this leadership role, and how we can all become better leaders.
Yeah. I would say really to live a life and to be privileged to live a life that most people don't get to experience, you have to be willing to do things that most people are willing to do, right? And so being embarrassed, falling on your butt, getting hurt, right, is what most people don't want to sign up for. But if you want to become an entrepreneur or you want to, become successful, you better get used to doing that over and over and over again. So here I am, in my entrepreneurial journey, probably 15, 17, 18 years. I don't know, something like that. Um, and even though I'm way more experienced than I was when I first started, I am still falling on my butt, still embarrassing myself. Right. But it's on a whole different level because every time that you do something new, you're not going to be the best at it. So you're going to fall on your butt. You're going to make mistakes and you're going to embarrass yourself. So if I were to say one thing, honestly, I can't really tell you that many, but I'll tell you a few that like really sucked. Okay, that really like stick out to me. One is the first event that I put together, right? To have this, like, I mean, I was promoting it to all my friends and like, oh, it's going to be such an awesome party, and then only 7 people show up, right? That's pretty embarrassing in front of my peers, especially at that age when like popularity and looking good in front of your peers matters, right? It matters less the older you get, but back then that was like that was a big deal, right? So that was one. You know what? Actually, another one was the first high school dance that I DJ'd was for my own high school. So I was so excited. I was like, yes, I get to look cool in front of all my friends, right? And all my peers. And then I flopped and I sucked at it, right? Dance floor was empty the entire night. And that following Monday coming back to school, I had to like, kind of hold my head down and try to hide. And I could tell people were just staring at me like, oh, he really sucked, That
Oh
was
man, amazing though. Again, your resilience is incredible.
Yeah, thanks. I would say the last one I'm going to share with you is actually the leadership one, right? So, I was like, you know what? I need to grow this business beyond myself. So I need to I need to hire a person, teach them how to DJ, so that way now we can work 2 events in one day, not just one event, because I can only be in one place at once, right? But if I hire a person, I teach them how to do it. Now we can be in 2 places at once, right? And that person to ruin a person's wedding, and then getting the phone call from the bride who's in tears telling me how that person ruined their wedding, right?
Ugh.
Embarrassing, painful, right? But did we give up? No, because now fast forward, we do a couple hundred events a year, right? We have the best like reputation when it comes to weddings specifically in our area, right? And people seek us out constantly now. But we had to make those mistakes in order to learn and grow and know how to improve, right? A lot of times people are too scared to put themselves out there because they want to make sure that they have all their ducks perfectly in line. Well, that's never going to happen when you first start out, right? You got to put yourself out there, receive feedback, and that feedback is going to tell you how to align those ducks properly. But without you putting yourself out there, you can't align the ducks. It doesn't work, right?
Yes. You're not going to have this perfect line. It's the correction mentality. You can only
course correct, when you are flying, when you're in the air and you're willing to take a leap and take a launch and get out there and do it. You're not going to find by guessing which step is the next one to take. You have to stick your foot out there, and you may fall, but then try again,
Yeah.
and keep moving forward. Man, I'm glad you shared that. That's super powerful, especially something like that. Like a wedding that, like you said, is a big, I can't even imagine how you were feeling during that. I am curious, like, how are you able to kind of course correct in when that happened?
Well, I asked myself, like at first, of course, the natural inclination is to be mad at the other person, right? But again, if you focus on self-development and you're educating yourself and you're gaining inspiration and knowledge from the greats, right? They'll quickly tell you, hey, ultimately the leader is the one who's at fault always. So even if someone else that you are in charge of, right, like that you're the leader of, messes up and it was their negligence, ultimately because you're their leader, by definition, it's your fault, right?
Mhm.
And so I had to look myself in the mirror, which was really tough at that point, right? To go, okay, where am I at fault? Because I wasn't at the event. I didn't do that, right? That person messed up, right? But then when I thought a little deeper, I was like, maybe I didn't train them properly. Maybe I didn't set them up with the proper tools, you know? Maybe I should have shadowed them first multiple times. So in the case that they were about to make a mistake, I could step in instead of just sending them out to the first event by themselves, right? And then I started recognizing, oh yeah, it is the leader's fault every single time.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, it's
By the way, it makes you an awesome friend, makes you an awesome spouse, an awesome parent, because if you're always choosing to take responsibility, extreme ownership, right? People will first off love you, respect you, and appreciate you for it, but you're going to grow from that as well every single time because you're not a person that's a victim, that's looking to make excuses. You're a person that's looking for solutions, right?
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, because that reflection was able to see, like you said, the solution was, oh, I need to shadow them, and you're letting them in, and then stepping them in, uh stepping in when you need to, if you need to,
Mhm.
and they're going to perform better knowing that you're there also. So like
Yeah.
that could be part of it as well. Like maybe you don't even step in and you're just there, but it's going to make them feel a little bit more comfortable knowing that they have that backup,
Yeah.
perform at a higher level themselves, because if they're worried more about like screwing up, guess what? They're probably going to screw up if they're worried about screwing up. But if they know that you're there to support them and help them, then they're confident and they're going to show up in their best selves because they're not worrying about this and that. They can focus on the deliverable. I'm curious though, and it's not really as relevant to entrepreneur, but I'm curious at like, and hopefully this is a quick answer, but like what was it that like didn't go well at the event?
At the event, multiple things.
Okay.
Lack of announcements.
Mm.
Oh, literally, the person got the bride's name wrong. So
Ooh.
announced the wrong name, really painful, right? Then didn't have the proper songs like ready for the special dances, like first dance, father daughter dance, right?
Oh
So it
man.
was literally, yeah, it was that bad.
Yeah.
But here's the
Probably just
thing.
a young
I
kid. He'd never even been to a wedding probably before, or very few. Like
Yeah,
just not that.
I was young as well, right?
Yeah.
So, and I had actually not been to that many weddings either, so I had a lack of understanding as well. But hindsight
Hmm.
is 2020, right? So from that vantage point, we didn't know what we were doing. But now, fast forward to today, we have a full training curriculum in place, and we know every single time with guarantee that once these people are team members pass our training curriculum, they are going to be ready with full confidence to perform the event. Okay, and we're going to get 5-star reviews back in return. And here's what's even more interesting is that I'm not even running the training anymore. So I've been able to empower someone, like I trained the person who trains people now. which is even more incredible, right? And without making those mistakes, I would never be able to have ended up in this position. I had to make that mistake in order to know how to get to this point.
Yeah, incredible. Now you got a team of people taking care of things so that you can focus on other businesses. Like I love that. I mean, it's so cool, and hearing us meeting basically because of DJ University, basically. But here you are, man. I mean, you're a star. Like you've got all of this experience from a young age to building a successful business, and here you are on to the next one. Which is just super amazing and inspiring to see. How old are you, by the way?
I'm 34.
34. Okay. Yeah, that's amazing. That's so cool. So to shift gears a little bit, I am curious about kind of what this like entrepreneur journey, like you're able to grow, you're building your team, you're becoming that leader, you're training other people. Now you start this you started a course, to help other
Yeah.
people do the same.
Mhm.
So like what was kind of like the inspiration behind wanting to do that?
Yeah. So really, it came down to, hey, I want to fire myself. Again, to a W-2, like an employee mindset of person, it's counterintuitive. But to an entrepreneur, we don't want to work in the business. We want to own the business and move on, right? And so I had to ask myself, how do I fire myself from training people, right? How do I ultimately grow this business without me having to personally travel from state to state? Once we grow this company across the nation, right? I don't want to be the person that jumps into airplanes or cars and travels to every location just to make sure that training is going properly, right? So at first, the foundation of DJ University was actually to create an in-house training, online and automated training process, so that way it could scale across the country and across the world over time. The inspiration for the name came from Ray Kroc's book. Ray Kroc is the person who invested in McDonald's, right, and turned McDonald's into what it is today. And they actually had Hamburger U for all their franchises. It still exists to this day, right? It's called Hamburger U. If you ever want to invest in a McDonald's and become a franchisee, you have to go to Hamburger U, right? And I thought, man, DJU would be awesome. I wonder if it's available, right? And at first it wasn't. And so I just waited it out, and then it became available, and then I purchased it. And we
Amazing.
trademark to it now too, which is nice.
Yeah, probably from Joey. Right.
Right.
Joey's our mutual friend. He's awesome. He's been on the show. But yeah, that's so cool. What is the book by Ray Kroc? Do you remember the title of the book?
I don't recall it actually.
Yeah, it's all
No.
right.
I can
But one
see that.
one thing I thought was super interesting that you mentioned as well, was again like fire yourself. There's a book called The Entrepreneur Roller Coaster by I think it's Ben Hardy or Darren Hardy. I forget which one.
Mhm.
But he talks about how he interviewed billionaires, and he was like, "What made you a billionaire?" He's like, "I quit." And they're like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, I just quit. I focus on quitting everything that I do." And it's a way to grab your attention, which it does when you say the word quit. But I like the way you're saying it too, like firing myself. It's the same concept. It's a fun way of saying like outsourcing basically, or delegating and building people to take the responsibilities that you have so that you stop doing these things,
Yeah.
and what's so interesting too, to circle back to your first experience when you were had that bad thing, is your initial thought, I'm sure at some point, was, you got to just do stuff yourself. Oh, he screwed up and I just got to do something myself.
Mhm.
But you didn't let that stop you. You didn't go back into that rabbit hole. You saw the bigger vision of like, no, he needs to be trained better. There needs to be more processes. There needs to be things that are done in place. Not, well, if it can't be done, then I'll just do it myself.
Yeah. Unfortunately, just given that I was trying to explain the story very quickly, I did leave some details out. This didn't happen overnight, right? I didn't just come to that realization overnight. It was something of like, I was mad at that person at first, then calmed down, then thought about it, asked myself, and then figured things out, right?
Hmm.
It was over, maybe like a few weeks span, let's say. But yeah, it is I remember actually learning how to grow a team, how challenging that was, because this is your baby that you started, And to hand off the keys to someone that could potentially ruin that, all that work and sacrifice and time that you've invested up until that point, is a very scary thing, right? But again, it's stretching you. It's growing past your comfort zone. That's why you're feeling uncomfortable. And it's necessary for you to graduate to the next level. You have to be willing to do that and feel uncomfortable. And that's the interesting part. Is, again, for the amount of years that of experience I have now in business, I still feel uncomfortable with the things that I'm working on. And it's actually a great feedback of like a metric to keep track of, like, hey, how uncomfortable am I currently? Because if I'm not, that means we're not pushing ourselves hard enough. We're not going to grow to the level that we ultimately want to grow, right? Because you think like, oh yeah, once I make it, then I'll be comfortable. Well, here's the funny part: is once you make it, you then go, okay, well, there's another level that I can achieve. Do I want to stay here forever, or do I want to keep going? But if you choose to keep going, you're gonna feel uncomfortable. That's just how it works.
Yeah. Yeah, and getting used to it, just getting used to being uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And I think it's one of those things often we avoid this level of discomfort, but things are going to happen no matter what that are going to be uncomfortable, whether you're an entrepreneur or not. Even still, like, it's just life is uncomfortable. Like, things are going to happen that aren't going to be as you planned, or again, it's just these things that can come up that you can't prepare for, but you just have to be prepared enough that understanding that you'll be able to figure it out and you'll get through it. You'll be able to get through these mistakes. This one bad wedding didn't ruin your business. You were able to get through like a bad review, get through a bad experience, and I think that works with everything. Oh, you have a bad podcast episode or a bad video that you publish, or, just a bad DJ session, again, maybe personally, and it wasn't somebody else that you did off, like, your experience at the high school, so being able to reflect and just be like, hey, I love sharing this quote. It's from Jim Edwards. You're a ClickFunnels guy, like, you've
Oh
read.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so Jim
Copyright.
Edwards is the Copywriting Secrets. Yeah, so one of my favorite quotes in that book is, it's like, in order to be great, you need to first be good. In order to be good, you need to be bad.
Mhm.
And I think it's so powerful, and I love saying that. I want to repeat it like in every episode because I feel like it's just such an important thing to realize. Like, every single thing that we do, if we want to get better, we have to be willing to be bad at everything, whether it's, you know, maybe you're surfing, that's something I've been getting into recently. I'm okay getting out there and having no clue what I'm doing and people watching me fall or barely being able to ride a wave. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. If you're focused on me and just getting better and improving, and at the end of the day, it comes to that reflection. And you said this repeatedly, is like not worrying about what other people are going to think, you
Mhm.
know, focus
Yeah.
on yourself and how you can do better and be better and do more.
I was just gonna say, Nick, that it's actually more of a foundational skill as well, right? Or principle. Sorry, not skill, but principle. Foundational principle. Think about this: when you're a baby and you first learn how to walk, you gotta learn how to crawl. Well, guess what? You suck at crawling, you're gonna fall over, right? Then once you start learning how to walk, you fall over, right? Then you start learning how to run, and then it comes to riding a bike, right? And you fall, right? And on it goes. So really, it's just a foundational principle that's just true in life in general, right? Anything that we want, wherever there's growth, there's going to be that pain initially, the sacrifice that you got to put in. But then on the opposite side of that, if you're willing to dare to endure through that, that's where you actually end up getting all the fruits of your labor, right? And one thing that sticks out to me with that is Warren Buffett's quote. He says, in the beginning, you get paid for what you do. Then you get paid for uh, what you know, and then in the end, you get paid for who you grow. So if you think about it, you get paid for what you do because you got to learn the skill first. Now that you know the skill, you become a manager or a leader that can then train someone else how to do that skill. So you get paid for what you know. And then ultimately, as an entrepreneur, you then, foster a CEO or someone else that can then be a leader of leaders. So then it's about you get paid for who you grow.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. And I want to say too, I love the like the children analogy, because it's one of those things like when a young kid is trying to walk and they fall, you're not like, oh, I guess walking's not good for you.
Right.
I guess you'll just never learn how to walk. Like, like you just that's not the case. And I think so many of us, like when we get started, if we fail, then we're like, oh, well, I guess this isn't for me.
Mhm.
It's like, but you wouldn't say that to a child. So why would you say that to yourself? Like potentially yourself in business, like, oh, something didn't work out the way that you want. What are you gonna do? You gonna sulk? You gonna cry? You gonna just go back into your cave, or are you gonna get up and you're gonna try again until you are willing to make it work? And I think a lot of times we put these like deadlines or these things that we want to put on ourselves of when we need to accomplish stuff. But if you don't have a time standpoint, and I know it's some people are like goals, you gotta have goals, specific dates, measurable. No, it's if you have a goal and you commit to making it work no matter how long it takes, you're going to be so much more likely to achieve that goal because you're just committed to the result instead of committed to the time frame, which can be disheartening. Like if you think about it from like a physical fitness standpoint and you're like, I'm going to lose 60 pounds in 60 days. It's like, all right, well, that's really hard, but what if you just said you're just going to lose 60 pounds and you're not going to stop until you get it? Like it may take you 2 years,
Mhm, mhm.
but you're going to get there because you're committed to it, to,
Yeah.
to to getting that goal.
And I'm assuming you can relate to this as well. Every time that I've set a goal with a deadline, right? Because it is smart to do that, literally smart, if you know the
Yeah.
acronym,
Yeah.
SMART, right?
Uh,
So, but when it comes to setting a deadline, sometimes you're not going to hit it because there's certain things that are outside of your control, right? But Nick, can you relate to this? That when you've set goals in the past with a deadline, you may have not hit it right on that date, but then a few months later, you do hit it. You end up hitting it,
yes,
right?
absolutely.
A lot of times what I've noticed is like I would get so discouraged because like, oh man, I didn't hit my deadline, right? But in the end, over and over and over and over again, because I've been doing this for a while now, I've been able to check all these goals off my list. Things that were started off as an idea or a dream became a reality, not based off my specific timeline. There was a little delay because it took me a while to actually learn certain skills that I needed to acquire those opportunities or those goals.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I've had those same experiences. And most of the time when I set a deadline, that it kind of kicks me in gear a little bit to
Accountability,
get.
right?
Yeah, exactly. I'll post stuff on social media and I'm like, hey, I'm doing this because again, it's on social media. Well, I'm a man of my word, and so I put it out there because I know that it's sometimes the kick in the butt that I need to make sure that it's going to happen. But like you said, you're not discouraged about when you maybe don't hit it, because I think it's important at the same time you look behind, like, hey, you didn't lose 60 pounds, but you lost 35. Like,
Right?
you
Yeah.
know take the time to reflect and look back on like what you've been able to achieve. For me, the example that came out to me I had was like, my goal was to move to San Diego in July
Mhm.
of 2020, and then I ended up not doing it until October. But again, like, I didn't even think twice about that. I mean, there was a global pandemic, so I think that's a fair excuse to it, and like delaying my plans a little bit. And a lot of
In the
other
end, you
things
still
happen.
achieved it though, right?
Say that again.
I said in the end, you still achieved it though, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and like I had goals of having a certain revenue by the time I was leaving, and I wasn't even close.
Mhm,
Not
mhm.
even close.
Yeah.
But I was like,
That give us a reason or an excuse to give up? Absolutely not, right?
no.
We got to keep going.
Yeah. And again, I was being so committed to your goals makes it possible that nothing will get in your way, even if it is like money. Because again, for me, it was like a burn the ships too. It's like, all right, well, I'm moving there. I'll figure it out. No,
Yeah.
I don't need that. I'm going to make money when I'm there anyway. So like, I don't need to have a certain amount in savings to make sure that I'm, good. It's like I'm just gonna figure it out, make it happen.
And I think that again, your listeners can also agree with this that like you may know someone, you can probably name that person, right? There's a person that you know in your life that has a real sense of confidence. And then there's probably a person that you know that has a fake sense of confidence, right? The people that have a fake sense of confidence tend to be the cocky ones, right? They're trying to prove something so bad to people that they are insecure about themselves, right? Versus how do you gain real confidence? You know how you gain real confidence is by taking the risk and being willing to do something beyond your comfort zone, making mistakes, learning from them, getting back up again, and then conquering that goal or whatever you wanted to achieve to prove to yourself that you're capable. Because once you recognize whatever you put your mind to, you can achieve, that's where the real sense of confidence comes from. And you go, well, I was able to achieve that. What else can I achieve now? Right. And
Amazing.
that's you must have proved that to yourself over and over and over again before moving here, because you're like, hey, I'll figure it out either way. That's a real sense of confidence. Most people who don't have that level of confidence would never take that risk to move across the country without any guarantees, right? But you must have done things in your life prior to that decision that have proven to yourself over and over and over, hey, you know, when I said I would do this, yeah, I didn't hit my timeline, but I still got it done. I still achieved that goal, right? And I did this and I did that and I did this and I did that. Oh, now I'm going to move across the country. I'm pretty sure, yeah, it's not going to go based off my timeline, but in the end, I will still figure it out, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, absolutely. And that's valuable for me to reflect on myself as well. Yeah, you know, you don't think about it because it was still big at the time, but I didn't think about how previous events leading up to it really actually were preparing me
Mm-hmm.
for being willing to take that leap during a pandemic, you know, during the things going on that yeah, that you know, again, and I love the quote, like Brendan Burchard is like, your confidence is really your ability to figure things out, your belief in your ability to figure things out. You don't
Wow.
actually have to know how to do that certain thing or to be confident. It's like, how do you become confident? Well, you just do it and then you do it more. You know, it's like, how is anyone confident in anything? Because they were willing to fail a bunch of times. You know, it's not like you see some like somebody that I don't know why this example came up in my head, but like someone that maybe is good to talking to females. You know, well that's because they tried and they tried and they were horrible, and then they just got better at it because they were willing to try. You know, and willing to fall and figure stuff out. And I love that you talked about that you know, earlier as well, you know, getting hurt and, you know, being willing to fall and you know, where there is pain, there is growth, you said. And this was so awesome. I mean, it was so cool hearing your, you know, your story from getting started in entrepreneurship at such a young age. You know, middle school, you know, you're starting that process, and then high school, and kind of sharing how you got started loving just the business aspect, you know, within DJing, and then quitting your grocery job to remove that safety net and just go all in and burn the ships. I mean, and then having the flop, you know, the flop of your first event, you know, but you learn from it. You learned exactly what you can do, what you can't, you know, in order to grow, in order to improve, we need to figure out what doesn't work in order to figure out what does work. You know, you were able to analyze the data. Oh, well, I didn't promote this long enough. I need to promote it longer, you know, and that will work. You know, you talked about trusting the process, you know, and just like understanding that if you put in the work, you put in the time, you know, things will work out for you when you're diligent and you care about your craft, you know, and you were diligent about learning not just about becoming a better DJ, but also about learning the business aspect, which
Mhm.
can be tough because again, those are the two assets that you're doing, and most business does require that level of not only learning the craft within the business but also the business itself. And then I love the bus factor. I think I've heard like similar stories of that where somebody, you know, it's like, hey, you get hit by a bus, like, oh, well, your business is gone. And it's such a great analysis or like visualization that you can think of, like, well, what would happen? You know, like, could this business survive without me? You know, and is it something that you want to survive without you? Also, I think to think about it from a legacy standpoint, you know, that's like taking it one step further. Not only will it survive if I get hit by a bus, but what about when I die when I'm 90? You know, is your business going to be still running and growing, which is a cool thing to think about. They talk about that in The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek, which is a
Cynic, right?
great
Yeah.
great book. um but then yeah, you talked about, you know, again, just becoming a leader and how you had to step into that role, knowing that that was an important aspect for you to be able to grow and build the business that you wanted to grow. Getting hurt, being willing to fall on your butt, fire yourself. Get being willing to fire yourself so that you can again focus on other things. Here you are on a second business, working on a third business. I'm sure it won't be your last either, as you continue to be your serial entrepreneurial self. But with pain, without pain there is no growth. I love that you shared that. And then not to mention, the quote that you get paid for what you do, and you get paid for what you know, and you get paid for who you grow. I think that is a super powerful quote. Who'd you say that was? Warren Buffett, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So awesome. So, I mean, just an incredible, so much value. I'm so glad that we were able to talk about all of these, different assets and avenues that you went through this entrepreneur journey through yourself, and everything that you shared was so powerful. Just the power of failure and what that can do, for you, and what it's done for you now, and continues to do. And I think no matter what level you're at, you still have to continue to fail, because those are the new levels that you're going to accomplish. So thank you so much for being here. This was awesome.
Absolutely. My pleasure, Nick.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Say that again.
I said, thanks for having me, by the way.
Oh yeah, of course. Real quick, because I love to ask this. I know we did talk about a few different books already, but is there one particular book, and maybe it is, Rich Dad Poor Dad, but if you have one particular book that you just recommend a ton that was super influential and impactful for you?
Yeah. I would say How to Win Friends and Influence People by
Mm,
Dale Carnegie. It's a classic. And the reason why I suggested that one is because it's not necessarily a business book, right? It's more about how to just be a good person in a sense that, like, how to be a good listener, not make the conversation only about you, right? There's so many people that make the conversation all about themselves. And then also how to be a good networker, because ultimately it is about the who, not the how, right? So there's another. I just mentioned the Warren Buffett quote with who you grow, right? But there's also it's not always about what you know, but it's about the how too, or instead of the what, it's the how, right? Or sorry, I'm butchering that. Instead of the what and the how, it's about the who, right?
yes.
Because sometimes you just need to work with people that are better than you at certain things, right?
Yeah, 100%. Amazing. So powerful. And then that's a great book too, and a great quote. I think it says a lot. Yeah, it's about building relationships, and how you communicate with other people.
Mhm.
It's very powerful book. So great choice. And then lastly, what's the best way for somebody to get in touch with you, follow you, connect with you?
Yeah. Really, I would say at Learn from DJU. So that's at Learn from DJU on social media. And then also djuniversity.com.
Love it. Awesome. Ben, thank you so much for your time. This was amazing.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
And thank you, listeners, for being here. And remember, let's keep growing together.
Wait, one more thing. I would first like to say thank you. Thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this message, please take a moment to write a review. By writing a review, it helps people find this message and helps me help more people. And if you really, really liked it and you think this message could help someone else, take a screenshot, share it on Instagram, and please tag me at Nick J. Boni, NickJBoni, so I can show my appreciation for you. We can all win by helping each other grow. Thank you. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon.